Okay, so just really quick again, rhythmic dictation, 2/4 time, 7 measures total. Again, you only have to write the rhythm. I'll clap it for you. And I'll give you 2 measures of 2/4 for nothing. No starting note value. Questions? Alrighty. 2 measures for nothing. I'll subdivide. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. So again, what's our process in doing this kind of written work? What do you want to do first? Gabriel, how do you approach this kind of a thing? When someone claps or plays something for you and you have to write it down, what do you do?
Try to find out how fast you're going. So small steps, large steps.
Good.
The values and such, and where they fall within the measures. I know how long the measures are.
Sure.
Figure that out, and if I could then press some patterns, I don't know.
Those are great ideas. So find out your smallest note value. Okay, so we know that it's 2/4 times, so it's a quarter note pulse. So what was the smallest rhythmic value that you heard? 8th note, right. So there's nothing faster than an 8th note, good. Also, you want to line up those attacks on strong beats, preferably, you know? So maybe every time you could start with that. Like if you heard an attack on a strong beat, you could put a slash there and you would just know that that happened. And if you didn't hear an attack on a strong beat, then it's possible you're dealing with a syncopated rhythm, okay? Which obviously there's some syncopation here. Let's do it again. 2 measures for nothing, subdivided. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. All right, which measures had attacks on the downbeat?
Had a what?
Had an attack on the downbeat. Yeah, like an articulation on the downbeat.
2.
The second measure, the first measure, the second measure. What about measure 3? Did you hear an attack on beat 1? No. Good, good, good. What about measure 4?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
What about measure 5?
Yep.
6
Yep.
and 7.
Yes.
So measure 3 is the only bar that doesn't have an attack on beat 1. Who caught the measures that were syncopated, where you have a stronger beat 2 than a stronger beat 1? Clay, what do you have for syncopation?
Yeah, so I just have 3, or so 1, 2.
Just give me the measures.
Oh, yeah, wait.
Yeah.
I'm ready for this. Yeah, it was just 1, 2, and sort of the first half of 3.
That's it? And any other measures that are syncopated?
Were measures 1 and 2 syncopated?
1, absolutely.
Right, not 2 though, right?
Yeah.
2 has a syncopation. Right. Going into bar 3. So 1, 2, and 3 contain syncopations, yes. And there's one more,
Oh, I guess 6.
bar 6. Let's listen again. 2 measures for nothing. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. Okay, that's 3 hearings. Who has complete answers? Out of curiosity. 1, 2. Who has about half of it at least? Good. 3, 4, 5. Good. All right. One more hearing, then we'll figure it out. 2 measures for nothing. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and. All right, Gabriel, clap for me what you have, please. Very good, very good. Let's talk rhythm. So first bar, Zach, what's the rhythm?
1 and rest and.
So you notate it all in 8 notes?
Yeah.
That's fine, that's totally fine. Yes, so you're correct. So you have an attack on 1, an attack on the and of 1, and then an attack on the and of 2. That's totally fine. A simpler way, you could just do 8th quarter, 8th, okay? But in this case, since you don't have pitch and you don't have sustain, that's totally fine. You can write in rests, totally
That's what I
fine.
did as well instead of.
Yeah, yeah. I think make it easier for yourself if it's going to yield you the same result. So you can use the full note value. So if I'm just clapping it, it's fine. Okay. But if you like the rests,
That's why I was confused about the whole syncopation thing, because I was like,
well, it doesn't matter whether it's a rest or a sustained value.
Right.
What matters is if a stronger beat is on a weak beat. Yeah. So. All right. So measure 2, Bridget. What do you have for measure 2?
Measure 2 confused me for some reason, so it's wrong.
What do you have?
I have a quarter note and an eighth note.
Pretty close, actually. So it's quarter and then eighth, eighth. That's tied over.
Okay.
What might have been confusing is that measure 2 ties into bar 3, creating another syncopation. So, but yeah, actually the start of that is correct. So again, measure 2, quarter, 8th, 8th tie is what they have. Or what you could also have is quarter, 8th, 8th, and then on the downbeat of measure 3, you could have an 8th rest. That's totally fine too. Okay. Clay, measure 3.
Yeah, there's a not a rest, but it's held over on
eighth rest, eighth, eighth, eighth. Or you could just have it tied over from the previous measure, which is what they have. Good. Emily, measure 4.
I don't have the full measure because this is where I got a little messed up, but
Mhm.
the only ones I have that starts with 2 8s, possibly, maybe kind of sort of.
There are 2 8s in the bar, but they are 2 and. So we have a quarter on beat 1, or an attack on beat 1, and then attacks on 2 and. And then measure 5 is exactly the same. Quarter, eighth, eighth, or attack on 1 and attack on 2 and. Okay. Noah, what about measure 6 and 7?
Sorry, eighth quarter, eighth, and then half note.
Yep, very, very good. That's what they have, yeah. So attack measure 6, attack on 1, attack on measure 1 and attack on 2 and, the end of 2. And then the last bar is just they have a half note, but you could just have an attack on the first beat and that would be fine. Yeah.
I was just gonna ask, if you're writing in percussion notation, how do you write a half note?
As a half note.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, even if they use the X note heads, then it would be like a half note head with an X in the middle of it
That's
instead
what I
of
thought,
just
yeah.
instead of just an X. Mm-hmm. But depending on like what kind of battery instrument or unpitched percussion you write for, you could just use standard note heads. You don't have to use the X's. Yeah. Good. All right. So now what we're gonna do is not write for a minute, and I want you to clap something back for me. Okay. This example will be in 2/4 time, but I don't really care about that right now. I want you to clap back what I clap for you. It's a little tricky. So listen to what I clap. 1 and 2 and 1. Your turn. 1 and 2 and 1. Pretty good. Listen to it one more time. 1 and 2 and 1. 1 and 2 and 1. Excellent. Now I am going to add 2 more measures. 1 and 2 and 1. 1 and 2 and 1. That's pretty tough. Just the last 2 bars, just the last 2 bars. It's pretty hard. Last 2 bars. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. Excellent. One more time. 1 and 2 and. 1 and 2 and. There it is. So the whole thing, 1 and 2 and 1. One and 2 and 1. Write it down. And I'll clap it for you one more time. Okay? 1 and 2 and 1. who has complete answers? I feel pretty good about. Who's almost got the whole thing? Let's listen to it again. 1 and 2 and 1. So what's the smallest note value we have here?
16.
Yep, the 16th, and there's a lot of them. What's the largest note value?
I got 1/4.
Quarter note.
Yeah.
1/4 note. All right. Who's confident about their first measure? Noah, can you clap it back for me, please?
1 and 2 and 1.
Awesome. What rhythmic values do you have notated?
16th rest,
Yep.
16th, 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 16th rest, 16th.
Sure, very good. So 16th rest on the downbeat, followed by 3 16th notes. That completes beat 1. Beat 2, 16th note, followed by they have an 8th note, and then another 16th note on the of 2. So 1 E, okay? Or you could notate it as Noah has it as 2 16th notes on beat 2, a 16th rest, and then a 16th note on the of 2. So 2 E and Okay, good. Measure 2. Lily, what do you have in measure 2?
Honestly, I couldn't figure that out.
It is a little tricky one. Who's got measure 2? Who has the measure 2? Yeah. Okay, what do you have in measure 2?
Can we clap it?
Sure.
1, 2. Oh, she said something. 1, 2.
Good. And how did you notate that?
I notated as 3 6. Actually, I noted it as straight 16ths. With
Yeah.
the 4th and 5th time.
Precisely. Yes, so you have 8 total 16ths in the measure, and then the 4th 16th is tied into the 5th 16th, or the of 1 ties into 2. So 1 E and E and That's right. Good. Another option there notationally would be to have 4 16th notes from beat 1 E and 16th rest, and then 3 more 16th notes, E and on 2. Either is fine. Measure 3. Who's got measure 3? Bless you. Anyone measure 3?
I didn't get it written
Yeah.
down, but I think I remember it.
What clap would you remember, Noah?
Okay, so was it?
Very close. Yeah, so right, so right. 1 and the 2 E and. So 1 and the 2 E and is 8th with 2 16ths. So that's your beat 1. And then beat 2, 2 16ths, and an 8th. And they have it notated as that 8th note on the end of 2 tied into the downbeat of that last bar.
Oh dear.
Which is, you could notate it that way, or you could have a rest on the downbeat of the last measure. Either way would work. The point is that there's not an attack on the downbeat of the fourth bar. It's a rest or a tide. So then that last measure, you either have it tied in from the 8th note on the end of 2 from the previous bar into a 16th note on the downbeat, followed by an articulated 8th note, and then a 16th note, and that's beat 1, and then beat 2 is a quarter note. So it's E, a 2, E, a 2. Or you could just have the 16th rest on the downbeat, 8th note, 16th note. Or any value that represents the correct tax. That's a tricky one.
I'm sorry, what was measure 4 again? It was a 16th.
4 is E, a 2, E, a 2. So you can either do, tie it in from the 3rd bar, or you can just do a 16th rest on the downbeat. Either or. What I find when doing this sort of on the spot is that writing rests actually takes up more time than is necessary if it's just pure rhythm. So when you can just do note heads as slashes, it's a little bit easier that way. Slash, 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 and then you put in the stems afterwards. So, but when you're writing a 16th rest or an 8th rest, it's kind of intricate, and quarter rests are a pain, so. Yeah, good practice. Okay, good. And let's do some melody. All right, 8 measures. 8 measures in the key of D major. 4/4 time. Isn't that nice of me? 4/4 time, D major. That's not so bad. Sorry, good? What?
What? I missed that.
Is it treble or bass?
Like,
clef?
as in treble or bass?
Oh gosh,
Actually,
treble clef. Yes, thank you. It sounded like you were speaking like another
What we
language.
should have asked is we should have asked for the pitch designation.
Yes, very good.
We should have asked that.
Octave designation, yeah, so it's a D4 is your first note. And it is a dotted quarter note D4. So treble clef, key of D major, 4/4 time, and your starting pitch is a dotted quarter note D4. And again, it is 8 total measures. Now keep in mind all of the chord types that we've talked about, okay, this term. And don't rule out the possibility of modulation, right? For the most part, our examples tend to remain in one key. And to be fair, most music does do that. But that is not the end-all be-all. Okay, it's possible to, modulate to other keys too. Just a hint. I'll count 2 measures of subdivided 4/4 for nothing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So let's listen again. pitch associated, you want to listen for the trajectory of the melody. Where do we begin? Where do we end? Are there any rhythmic melodic patterns that you hear? What's the contour of the phrase? Does it go upwards? Does it go downwards? Or some combination thereof? And listen for midpoints. That's also really important if you can identify cadential points. If you hear an authentic cadence somewhere or a half cadence perhaps, which would make sense halfway through a phrase. Just something to think about. Alrighty, second hearing. 2 measures for nothing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Sing the last note. Sing the first note. We modulated. From D major to
G major.
G major.
G minor.
Right. G was right though, Noah. Good ear there. But there's a distinct difference here, right? With the inclusion of the minor third with the syllable may, what does that mean? You modulated to borrowed for. Okay. Also, did anyone hear anything interesting around measure 4 or just before it? What'd you hear?
Enclosure of the fifth.
Right, you had this. And this is your starting note, right? So we do have a half cadence in the 4th bar, and it's decorated by. Gabriel, what are those 2 notes? Do you give me solfege syllables?
That would be lay.
Bingo, lay, fi to sol. What's the implied chord, or what type of chord?
A German.
Or an augmented 6 chord.
Augmented 6.
Exactly, Noah, precisely, because they all have lay fi built in, and we only get the melody here. So it could be Italian, French, or German. But we know with those 2 syllables right here in the melodic line that there is an augmented 6 chord present there. So you have the syllables lay and fi. Good. Let's listen again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I'm just going to play the first 2 bars and the downbeat of the 3rd measure. So bars 1 and 2 and the downbeat of 3. 3, 4. Same thing. 3, 4. now starting on this note, downbeat of bar 3, I'll play bars 3 and 4 and the downbeat of 5. Measures 3, 4, and the downbeat of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing. 3, 4. So now, on that last beat of the 4th bar, which is a quarter note A, I'm going to take that pickup and play measures 5 and 6. Okay? So the last beat of measure 4, and then all of bars 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3. And yes, please feel free to audiate. If it helps you hear it and get it right, then hum, sing, do whatever. Whistle, do a dance. Same thing. 1, 2, 3. I'll do it again. My fingers slipped. 1, 2, 3. So from the last beat of bar 6, the quarter note A natural on beat 4, hint, hint, and then the last 2 measures. So beat 4 of measure 6, and then the last 2 bars. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 2, 3. Same thing. 1, 2, 3. Now, who has the entire thing and they feel good? 1, 2, 3, mostly. Good. Who has all but 2 measures? And you're pretty sure that you're right. That's good. And who's got at least half of it? And you feel like you've got a pretty solid grasp. Okay, I'll play it one more time and then we'll go over it. Think large scale. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Okay, who can solfege the first 4 bars? Gabriel. Sure.
Do, mi, re, ti, do, re, mi, fa, sol, do, re, mi, sol.
Good, good. The rhythm in bar 3. Other than that, the syllables were darn right. Perfectly done. Good. Now we know we modulate to borrowed 4 by the end, right? We end up in G minor. So now what happens is, if you're solfeging a modulating example, then logically, what do you think you would do using a system of movable do like we do?
Change your syllables.
You change your syllables. Clay, where would you recommend changing our syllables in the second half? Give me an example. Yeah, what would you recommend?
I would do it 1 of 2 ways. You could do it in bar 6.
Okay.
Or personally, I didn't honestly hear that as a new key until the very end, because it just sounded like it was like a borrowed 1 sort of thing.
What if I play it like this? So I'll take the pickup into bar 5. Depends on how it's phrased.
It's kind of crazy. I would sing everything in the original key except for the last 2 notes.
I would change on bar 7.
I would change at the end of bar 5. Here's why. Hear me out. Okay, so at the end of bar 4, you have so, mi, re, do, and then over here, if we leave the A as sol, and then we change on the downbeat of 6, right? Then it'd be so, fa, mi, re. That doesn't make any sense. So if you start the modulation on beat 4 of bar 5 and treat the A as re, right? Re, so, fa, mi, re, do, right? Re, mi, re, ti, do. So for me, that's where the modulation happens, is in measure 5, beat 4, because that A represents, right? saying the right notes. You sang this instead of. But your notes were right.
Okay.
Just your rhythm wasn't right on. Okay. Does everyone get like the solfege that I'm recommending here? And again, Clay's not wrong. Like there are different places, like depending on how you hear it, where you could change the syllables or where you could hear the harmony sort of shifting. For me, logically, that re, so, fa, me, re, do. Like you literally have so, fa, me, re, do from bar 6 going into bar 7. And I don't think that we can really ignore the linearity of that melody being so clear, you know, and also reinforcing it. 1, 6, 4, 5, 1 there at the end. So my opinion is, you know, theoretically would be to start the modulation, pick up so, fa, me, re, do at the end of bar 5 going into bar 6. And then 6, 7, and 8 are all in G minor for me. But I can understand an alternative analysis as well, because it's not crystal clear. We only have a melodic line to go by, you know. But yeah, as long as you can rationalize your theorem, it can be acceptable, even if mine is the best. So. That was a joke. You guys are so hardcore in the mornings. Oh, you're the best. All right, and oofda, we don't have enough time for harmony, but you know, let's do something real quick. Go ahead and notate a grand staff. Let's see what we can do in like 2 or 3 hearings. Grand staff, treble bass clef. Key of A flat major. A flat major. Don't worry about time signatures or anything like that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 7 total chords that you're going to hear. 7 total chords. And your first chord is an A flat major tonic triad with your bass note on A flat 3, tenor on C4, alto on E flat 4, and soprano on A flat 4. So a close position A flat major tonic triad. That's chord 1. Okay? And we'll just go chord by chord, okay? Because we don't have enough time to really do a zillion hearings. So chord 1 into chord 2. I think we might have even done this one. So let's see if you remember it.
I think you just sort of before.
Say what?
Never mind.
I think that's literally what I just said, Clay.
Oh, yeah, because I think you've done this one before.
Yes. So let's see. Let's see how well you remember. And pick it up. Chord 1 into chord 2.
What if I already have this written down in my notebook?
Don't refer to it. Okay? I want to see that, like, if, and this is actually a good exercise, like if you've done it before, can you recall the patterns? Does it still make sense to you? First 3 chords. This is such a good example that I saw this and I'm like, ooh, I'm going to do that one. First 4 chords. First 5 chords. Six chords. And all 7. All right. So, Noah, what are those Roman numerals for us, please? Just the Roman numerals.
1,
Uh-huh.
5, 4, 3.
Excellent. 5, 4, 3. Good third chord.
1,
Uh-huh.
French.
French 6 is the fourth chord. Excellent. Fifth chord.
1.
1. Yes.
6, 5.
6,
6,
4.
4.
Good, good.
4.
1, 6, 4, followed by
5, 1.
5.
Oh, it's 5, 6.
5, 7.
What the? Oh,
There's a
I'm
7.
so sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. No, you're doing great. 5, 7, and then 1. So 1, 5, 4, 3, 1, French 6, 1, 6, 4, 5, 7, 1. Good. Okay. And if you don't already have this one written down or you missed it the last time, then you can try to figure it out theoretically using the chords, which is also something that I recommend with harmonic dictation if you can't hear like all 4 voices, especially in a close position texture like this, when they're so close together that the overtones are just really hard to discern. You can theory it out, you know, if you can't hear it, and that's totally valid. But do still try to go for that bass line and try to figure out the soprano too. So. Cool, all right, that's it. Sight singing test on Tuesday. Okay, we'll do that individually like usual. And then on Thursday, we'll be in here for a written test as well. All right, thank y'all.